Good morning slash afternoon slash evening, delete as applicable, middle of the night if you like. To all you library lovers out there, a very warm welcome back to The Library is Open. So I hope you brought your library card, my darlings. How are we all doing? I hope you're well. So it's been 2 weeks since I uploaded a video, for which I'm very sorry. Life has been, as I'm sure you can tell by my previous vlogs, or if you follow me on social media, it's been very, very busy and full on at the moment, which is fine. But it does mean that I sort of have less available time than, for instance, I did over the summer to make content regularly. But actually, in some ways, that's not a bad thing, I don't think, because I'd rather make content that I want to make and say things that I'm interested in talking about to you, rather than just for the sake of it. And that's just a personal thing, because I could waffle for England, as you know. I could probably waffle for the entire United Kingdom, such as it is at the moment, but let's stick with England for now. We don't want to overface ourselves, do we? So it's Sunday morning. I want to say it's the 17th. Yes, it's the 17th of September 2021, just in case anyone discovers this in a time capsule. If you do, dig deeper, there's going to be some better stuff down there. Yesterday was Bolton Pride, which was a Vegan Queens booked gig. Unfortunately, my darling mother and best friend, Paul, aka Gemini, has COVID at the moment, as is Jason, so she wasn't able to join me for the gig. So my asthma was flying solo yesterday. And it went well. It went really, really well. It was a lovely event, obviously, but I missed that other person being there. But thankfully, she was there in spirit and audio message, so that was good. But yeah, just another contributory thing to just sort of being out the house a lot, being busy post Killer Queen, post the Victoria Wood Festival, post going back to work, where I'm now full time, pretty much, which is honestly lovely, but brings its own kind of, you know, requirements and commitments and so on and so forth. So there is that. On the plus side, the commute into work. Sorry, I've got a really itchy eye. Probably tiredness. That's the stress. But it does mean that the commute to and from work does give me more reading time. I think it's always a funny time of year, this, isn't it? You know, September particularly, although not exclusively if you work in academia or education or anything like that, because it's sort of the kick-off, isn't it? It's a bit like January 1st again. A new year, a new academic year, and it's exciting as well, of course, but it just brings, you know, a lot of things that have to get done, and have to get done in a specified amount of time, and, you know, consequently, because of that, you know, I sort of feel very sort of self-centered talking about myself like this, but I'm gonna tell you this because I believe in being transparent and open, so that other people can be open and own their own feelings and experiences. You know, I'm feeling a bit odd at the moment, just generally, just in terms of, I don't know, I can't explain it. It's just a weird headspace that I'm in. I feel sort of, I don't know, confused, things like that, and sort of, I don't know, unsure of myself, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. So, you know, I mean, this is no secret, really. There are ebbs and flows to good mental health. You know, I don't make a secret of the fact that I suffer with depression, and this is one of those ebbs, I think. But so I've chosen to deal with that through the medium of sleep and books, and everybody obviously has their own coping mechanisms, but again, just another explanation why sometimes the content isn't as regular as it might be. I'm just trying to look after myself and so on and so forth in order to do better stuff for you. So I hope that makes sense. It's very rambly, I do apologize for that. What am I reading at the moment, I hear you ask? I'm reading 2 books at the moment. I'm reading, we'll get on to what I have read shortly, I promise. I'm reading this at the moment, Shooting Martha by David Thewlis, which I believe I book hauled a while back. I think I did, yeah, in my most anticipated book. So again, this is by actor David Thewlis, and I'm only halfway through, so I can only give you a sort of half-formed thing. It's about this a director called Jack who is making a movie about his father's taking of his own life, and you know, the sort of events that led up to that in his life, his mother, his childhood self, and so on and so forth. And in the background is his ex-partner, literal background, Martha, an actor who took her own life. And then he meets this, well, he goes to see a production of The Devils, which is like a classic play of debauchery, and it features an actor who bears a striking resemblance to his ex-partner. So he sets her up in this house in France and asks her basically to imitate or impersonate this other person. And while she's sort of in this house, which is in the south of France, I believe, I could be wrong, my geography is not my strong point, that's why I do this for a living. Not this, but you know, this. She sort of uncovers secrets around their relationship and stuff. It's interesting. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's not bad at all. I'm not going to say it's good either, because I don't know. I'm not at the end yet. I don't know if enjoying is the word, but I'm intrigued by the book. That's where I can go at the moment. It smells amazing. And this is the signed edition by David Thewlis, who I do rate massively as an actor. Apparently it's his second novel. I've never read his first one, so I can't comment on that. But I'm intrigued to see where it goes. They're not likeable characters, which is fine. Absolutely fine. There is nothing to say that characters have to be likeable. I suppose what I mean is that this is not a gentle, easygoing kind of read. You know, there's quite a lot of trauma, both repressed and explicit, in this book. So, you know, that's just a word of, I suppose, warning. Caution is maybe a better word. So that's what I'm sort of reading as my main read. And at night, when I want something cozy, I'm reading this, which is A Little Class on Murder by Carolyn G. Hart. I've talked about this series before, the Death on Demand cozy mystery series. And this is about, this is our protagonist, Annie, who owns the Death on Demand bookstore on an exclusive, like, Shishi Island. And she's been hired to teach a class on mystery novels. Well, the 3 grand arms of the mystery. So Mary Roberts Reinhardt, Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers at a local college. And then the head of the department is killed, and there's an explosion and all sorts of secrets bubbling under the surface. It's a really reliable series, just to sort of make you feel quite good. It's quite tongue-in-cheek. Loads of references to cozy murder mysteries and stuff like that, like the sort of big golden age ones. So if you're a fan of that, it's a bit like having a load of Easter eggs on each page. There's a brilliant character called Henny, who's like a sort of fellow investigator, kind of strange bedfellow to Annie, and she often impersonates different detectives as she tries to solve the crime, and that's a lovely little moment. So I really enjoy that. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. I'm also listening to more audiobooks. I can't recall the name of it at the moment. Another cozy murder mystery. I'll put it in the description, but that's also really good. I know some people have apps, don't they, that send them off to sleep. Which is probably a much better idea than me sat listening to audiobooks, but they are an investment because they kind of lull me off within about 20 minutes, so I suppose any money I'm paying to download them is offset by a decent fall asleep time. It's not a real phrase, is it? But you get the idea. A little catch up on things I have read, a little jaunt around the genres, if you will. I'll just show you what I have been reading in the previous weeks. So I read this, which I bought completely on spec. It's called Breakup Monologues, The Unexpected Joy of Heartbreak by Rosie Wilby, who is a comedian, podcaster, and I believe journalist as well. And she is a lesbian. And she has a show basically that examines people's breakups. She's really fascinated in the idea of sort of heartbreak and the breakdown of relationships and what you learn from each relationship, if there's a good way to break up, if it's worth keeping people in your life, so on and so forth. And she sort of chronicles her own experiences and the experiences of others in this book. And just that sort of whole messy thing about love that is not Hollywood love, that is not Instagram love, that is not, you know, any kind of social media. The messy middle, my colleague Laura calls it, the messy middle, which is what the actual practicalities of love and relationships are. And I think that's really missing from our discourse as a society. What we're supposed to want and what we think it's going to look like versus what it actually feels like, which is why I really responded to this in terms of sort of going through and reading her experiences. There's some sort of critical theory stuff in here and some like quotes and stuff like that from both therapists and, you know, other cultures in history, their responses to love and relationships and so on and so forth. This would actually be quite a good companion piece to the Crystal Rasmussen or Tom Rasmussen, depending, book on marriage, which I read a few months ago. That was also very good. And I think, you know, anything that kind of examines, with it in a tongue-in-cheek way, I mean, it's very funny, but it's also quite moving. Anything that really examines the practicalities of those social interactions that are just supposed to come to us so easily, like Hollywood happy endings, is to be welcomed. So I really recommend this, irrespective of your relationship experience or your sexuality. If you're interested in finding the theory behind, but also the potential positives behind, as the byline says, heartbreak. So this was really fun. I really liked this a lot. Another one which I cannot praise highly enough because I think it's so important, not only to my profession but to the wider culture, is this gorgeous little book that came with the exclusive Waterstones end papers. Beautiful. This is Michaela Coel, the incredible Michaela Coel, who, if you haven't seen Chewing Gum and I May Destroy You, then I encourage you, with a word of caution, that the latter is heavy going. Very heavy going, so watch carefully and check in with yourself when you've watched it. Each episode, I should say, because it's heavy going. It needs to be heavy going because it's so important. Michaela Coel is rapidly becoming the kind of misfit, her terms, not mine, icon of the creative industries. I mean, she's an absolute force of nature and just a wonderful communicator. This is essentially, it's called Misfits, a personal manifesto. It's essentially a transcript of the speech she gave for the MCTAGGART lecture at the Edinburgh TV Festival, where she talks about what we mean when we talk about diversity, what we mean when we talk about class and race and appearance and sexuality and everything. But she really skillfully undermines the kind of lip service that is paid to these things and talks about what it actually means to be a misfit. There's a beautiful line in here. I'm going to see if I can find it because I loved it. And I don't want to paraphrase because she writes it better than I ever could. Where is it? Oh, yes. She has this definition. She says she doesn't like the word diversity because it's not clear what we mean by that, and she doesn't like outsider because it gets a bit Brexity. But it says the term misfits takes on dual notions. A misfit is one who looks at life differently. Many, however, are made into misfits because life looks at them differently. And I think that's really important. She goes through, you know, her experiences as a drama school student, as a person producing in the profession, as a writer, as a creative, so on and so forth. And she sort of unpicks microaggressions and the way that the system is stacked against people who don't come from this very sort of homogenized group, you know, which... sorry, just smelling. Which just really needs to be said. And this is, it's bookended as well by a sort of prelude and a postscript to the lecture where she sort of reflects on her experiences prior to giving the lecture and experiences after. I mean, even the fact that it's a lecture, as she mentions in the text, is like, she doesn't consider herself the kind of person who would be asked to give that kind of lecture. And of course, she's absolutely right. You know, we can talk all day about, you know, representing people, but when you put your money where your mouth is, that's what matters. So there are affirmations in here that are not pseudo-therapy kind of eggy affirmations, but more about a sense of owning and calling out and finding that space for yourself and for others who need to come up the ladder behind you. It's beautiful, and I think everybody who, not only everybody in the creative industry, but everybody in kind of any industry should read this and really reflect on it. So that's beautiful. So from the sublime to the not ridiculous at all, because it's not ridiculous, but I did promise a jaunt around the genres. So here is the third book I read, A Slow Fire Burning by Paula Hawkins, who wrote The Girl on the Train. Now, I was convinced I'd read The Girl on the Train, but it turned out I'd actually just watched the film with Emily Blunt, which wrong-footed me because... Product placement, sorry. It wrong-footed me because the film is set in America. But actually, so I was expecting Paula Hawkins' books to be American, but she's not, she's a British author, which surprised me. Again, I got the Waterstones edition with these beautiful black sprayed edge pages, and it's also signed. It was like a pre-order. This is a funny one because I think The Girl on the Train, for me, occupies that space that is also taken up by... like AJ Finn, The Woman in the Window, you know, the kind of absolutely seat of your pants thriller where you have to keep turning the pages, and there's twists and turns like a drag queen's concertina. It's not a real phrase, that, I just made that up. This is not really that. That's not a critique, by the way, but just in case you were sort of wondering, this is a more kind of domestic thriller with dark undertones, but it's quite a slow burn. Well, a slow fire burning. So what's the plot? So there's this guy who, there's this girl, who to start with, because there's quite a list of protagonists. So there's this girl called Laura, who is essentially being damaged and judged by life. And she's, you know, she has a history of, quote unquote, bad behaviour, the reasons for which become apparent as we go on. And she spends the night with this guy called Daniel, who ends up dead on his canal boat where he lives, and she's the prime suspect. But there's a neighbour called Miriam who, she witnessed Laura leaving the scene covered in blood, but she knows she isn't a killer. And she's also in a dispute with an author who has stolen her life story, basically, and published it as their own. And then there's this woman called Carla, who is Daniel's auntie. And she is, in the past, her child died when he was being looked after by her sister, who were led to believe let him fall off the balcony while they were away. And these kind of three storylines are intertwined in a way that's quite difficult to sort of pick out whose storyline is the lead. So it's very well plotted. It's really interesting. Is it seat of your pants thriller? Is it seat of your pants have to turn the next page like the aforementioned books? No, not really. Although obviously that's a personal opinion. Like maybe this is what gets you going. It's, as I say, it's more of a slow burn, and it's you kind of have to keep your eye, pointing to my temple there, but I meant my eye. Yeah, I kind of have to keep your eye on who knows what, where, when, who did that, because it sort of jumps back in time. It's quite nicely self-referential in that, actually, because there's a character who's an author who wrote a novel in kind of retrospect with the point of view shifting constantly, and then gets heavily critiqued for it, which is what this book does. So some of it's like a memoir, some of it's from the book that the author stole from Miriam's memory, and then some of it's the actual, I guess what we'd call an A plot line. So it's interesting, and the characters are very well drawn, and their motivations are cloudy, which I quite like. in terms of, you know, that sort of grey area of characters where you're not sure who's right, who's wrong. I don't think it has the elements of a murder mystery in the sense that you kept guessing up until the end, because I think it's reasonably obvious, but from about halfway through. But I don't think that's the point, and that's okay. So I would recommend it if you like a domestic kind of thriller that's still quite gentle in a way, because it's not, you know, there's no extreme violence in here other than the murder, or there's a bit of a beating at one point. But it's more about a series of damaged people trying to cope with the remnants of a shattered glass that life has left them. That was a beautiful sentence. So there we go. And finally, but by no means least, I've been dipping into this, and I'll tell you for why. It's because it was actually quoted in the blurb to a slow fire burning. The sort of opening dedication quote is, "Some of us are made to be carrion birds, and some of us are made to be circled." And that's from the poem My History As by Emily Skaja. So I decided to buy Emily's book, Brute, which is essentially a collection of poems ostensibly about relationships, or the falling down of relationships, but also about the kind of violence and sexuality that are inherent in both attraction and breakup, and also, you know, kind of what goes on behind the closed doors of relationships, particularly relationships that are not, should we say, healthy. Like what's contained in those silences between the protagonists in those relationships. So it's a lot around gender, it's a lot around the sexuality of person, it's a lot around, again, as I say, violence, but in these beautifully crafted little vignettes almost. And the voice is just really exciting in terms of, it feels very playable. I often approach poetry from a performance point of view, because that is my background, it's my job. So, you know, for instance, in the first poem in the book, which is My History As, there's a brilliant line here. "In my history, I was bones eating paper, or I was paper eating bones, semantics." There's something very sort of through line about the poems, and very, very profound feeling, without being a bit, you know, without being consciously thoughtful or supposed to make you think. You know what I mean when I say that, right? So that's Brute. So I'm about that way through, but I'm sort of dipping in because I sort of don't want to read poetry in like a big, I was going to say fell swoop then, but I mean, it's sort of like through line. It's nice to dip into and come back to. So that's what I've been reading at the moment. What else is going on? Oh, yes, I must say two quick things. One, thank you so much to anybody and everybody who watched my videos and noticed that I mentioned Bird and Blend tea shop, my favourite tea shop, because they actually contacted me, which was really kind, and sent me some free tea to say thank you for talking about them on my channel. So that was really, really lovely of them. So thank you, Bird and Blend, and thank you to everybody who mentioned me when they were ordering from them, and I hope you enjoy the tea as much as I do. Secondly, I must tell you, a brilliant, if you're in Manchester or indeed the Northwest, brilliant new bookshop has opened in the Northern Quarter on Tib Street called Coel. It opened while we were rehearsing for Killer Queen, and they really kindly did some promo for us as well. But it's Lgbtqia bookshop, run for and by the community. Gorgeous little shop on Tib Street. I'll link their website down below. They also have a mail order service, and it's just this fantastic collection of queer novels, non-fiction, accessories and things. They're doing this wonderful thing at the moment where if you buy, I think it's if you buy their tote bags, which obviously I did, they're giving them to schools as well as a kind of payoff thing, which I just think is a fantastic thing, that schools are going to have access to those resources. I picked up a couple of things in there. I don't have them all with me at the moment, but I'll just show you one of them, which I do have, which is this Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures by Zmith. which is about the history of amyl nitrate, basically, and what it was used for. And I just think, I'm not a poppers user myself, or anything like that. I don't really like anything that, not to sound pious, but I don't really like anything that influences my mental state. Perhaps that's understandable, which is why I no longer drink for about 2 years now, because I like to feel in control. Again, that's not a critique if you do, or you do any substance. You do you. You know what I mean? You know what's best for you. It's not good for me. But I am intrigued by this because apparently it's something about... there's a lot in history about where it actually came from, and it touches on the Victorian times as well, which is really, really interesting. As you know, that's my favourite period of history. And I saw it was new and coming out, and I just thought, you know what? I'll have a little read of that. Although I'll have to read it when I'm at home, though, because weirdly, like, I can't read... This is so odd. I can't read about people doing mind-altering things when I'm on... or body-altering things when I'm... like in public, because I have a panic attack. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but I do. So I'm the same with the dentist, like nitrous oxide and things like that. If anyone's describing that in a book, I just have a panic attack, which is weird because I'm not scared of it. But you know, aren't we as people just intriguing and very odd and nuanced? So there we go. But yes, if you do get a chance to go either in person or check out their website, please, please, please do. They're a wonderful independent bookshop, and let's face it, we need more of those, don't we? Okay, so I think that's it for today, my loves. It's been lovely to update you, actually. When I get on here, I'm fine. You know what I mean? Just talking to you, picturing you, listening to me, possibly rolling your eyes. But yeah, this has been really, really nice. What I have done in over summer is I did pre-film some content, so you may get those in the coming weeks. You'll be able to tell because I still have long hair. Where I've answered more of your questions. You remember though from a while ago, we did Q&As and stuff like that. So if you do suddenly see me with more hair again, don't worry, you haven't gone crazy. It's pre-filmed content. All right, my darlings, but for now, let's put those library cards somewhere nice and safe, and I want you to promise me that you will look after yourself and still stay safe while you're out and about there in the world. Thank you, as always, for watching, liking, and subscribing, if you did. If you didn't, then don't thanks. No thank you to you. No thank you for you. I'm joking. But thank you for your patience with me and for loving the smell of books as much as I do. And until next time, my absolute angels, take care of yourselves. Mwah.